Wait, who's Bob Jones? He was the founder of a Protestant fundamentalist school in my home state of South Carolina. While your typical Christian school emphasizes learning in a godly environment, this place is anything but typical. Instead of focusing on the teachings of Jesus, Bob Jones focuses on rules. And more rules. No sandals are allowed either, because what moral person would wear those? Oh yeah, guess they forgot about him. Students may not work where alcohol is served, even though Jesus made and drank wine. Neither Abercrombie and Fitch nor Hollister clothing can be worn, since that stuff is of the devil. And no hip-hop, country, rock, pop, or even jazz music is allowed. Even contemporary Christian music is forbidden, because heaven forbid young people listen to stuff like this. And hey, what 20-year-old doesn't want to turn on their iPod and hear, "That's me outside my church. How dare I go into the house of God wearing an Abercrombie shirt, jeans, and flip-flops? I'll make sure to repent for that one." But that's just the beginning. They've taught that Catholicism is a satanic cult whose popes are demon-possessed, and Bob Jones refused to enroll blacks until a Supreme Court ruling prohibited racial exclusion in private schools. But they still prohibited interracial dating and marriage because, quote, God intended segregation of the races and forbid interracial marriage. This blatant civil rights infraction led to another Supreme Court case, which Ronald Reagan begged the court to drop. Fortunately, the court refused and ruled that the school could not have a policy of bigotry in the name of God. Yet rather than drop this racist policy, the school paid $1 million in tax penalties and kept their policy until 2000, when the school received negative publicity after a visit by then-Governor George Bush. John McCain followed up by saying this:
"If I'd have been invited to go to Bob Jones University, sure I'd have gone." And I'd have told him, get out of the 16th century and into the 21st century. What you're doing is racist and cruel.
Hey now, John, let's give the school some credit. Bob Jones now has a whopping 38 black students. But since they can no longer use the Bible to justify racism, they've gone on a homophobic diatribe against gay people. Even though homosexuals are not allowed on campus, a group of gay Christians recently tried to visit the school, saying that Christ,
a legacy of love, inclusion, and acceptance. The gospel says that Christ did not come to condemn the world, but to save it. And so we're here before Bob Jones today, delivering a message to the gay and transgender students on the other side of the gate that we, even if not allowed on campus, bear witness to the fact that they are loved by us and by God.
But the school's leaders had a different message to deliver.
We thank Bob Jones University today and their right to refuse admission to this liberal left-wing homosexual group that would come in and try to corrupt the hearts and minds of the young people on this campus. This campus has been established for 80 years as a solace and as a haven away from the sins and the wickedness of this world.
Liberal left-wing morality corrupters? And that's my problem with the religious right. They've been so effective at convincing Christians that their way is Christ's way and everyone else is, well, going to hell. And any time a Christian Democrat tries to explain their view, these people immediately chastise them. Take a speech Barack Obama gave on his faith. At one point, he states why he leaves it up to women of different faiths to make a prayerful, personal decision about abortion.
I can't simply point to the teachings of my church or evoke God's will. I have to explain why abortion violates some principle that is accessible to people of all faiths, including those with no faith at all. I do not believe that religious people have a monopoly on morality.
But Dr. James Dobson, founder of Focus on the Family, just had to offer up a rebuttal.
Now, that is a fruitcake interpretation of the Constitution.
Am I the only one who thinks it's ironic that he would insinuate Barack Obama can't interpret the Constitution when Obama was a constitutional law professor And Dr. Dobson took American Government 101? In fact, Senator Obama, like me, noticed that these religious leaders use our faith as a wedge to divide us.
The Democratic presidential candidate is accusing Christian conservative leaders of using religion to divide Americans.
Faith got hijacked, partly because of the so-called leaders of the Christian right who've been all too eager to exploit what divides us. At every opportunity, they've told evangelical Christians that Democrats disrespect their values and dislike their church, while suggesting to the rest of the country that religious Americans care only about issues like abortion and gay marriage.
But rather than acknowledge that this is true, Dr. Dobson charged back, saying,
I think he's deliberately distorting the traditional understanding of the Bible to fit his own worldview, his own confused theology.
No, Dr. Dobson, that's what you're doing. You see, abortion and gay marriage are the moral issues as far as these guys are concerned, and since the Republican Party agrees with them on those two issues, the leaders of the religious right blindly adopt every position of the Republican Party as their own, and even have Christians convinced that Jesus would be a Republican. But there's just one problem.
Jesus would not be a Republican. He needs a shave and a haircut, and he hangs out with the poor, he's compassionate, he's got a hooker friend. He's Ted Kennedy, this guy.
Jesus didn't take sides in politics, and he wouldn't now. He didn't spend his days shouting at the social outcasts of his day. Contrarily, he reached out to them. He didn't go around pointing blame at others, nor did he advocate assassination or killing of any sort. Jesus didn't get caught up in pointless rules like the Bob Joneses of his day did, but he did spend a lot of time talking about poverty and taking care of the poor. In fact, he said, "Whatever you do for the least of these, you do for me." Yet despite us having elected so-called Christian conservatives and public servants who claim to be Christ-like, poverty tragically continues to rear its ugly head in American society today. Perhaps the worst example I've seen of these leaders neglecting the poorest among us was this natural disaster.